Hi, Josh. It's good to see you. How are you?
Hi Maggie, great to see you. It's been, I don't know, unless time I actually looked at you was live. It's been a long time.
I was
Um,
trying to think about that this morning. It's been probably 3 or 4 years since I've seen you in person, and
I
I
think that's
don't
right.
know if we've talked really other than social media
Yeah,
communication.
text. I think we might have been on the phone once, but I haven't taken a look at you in a couple years. When I was last, well, the only time actually that I was ever in Utah when we came to visit for a few days. I'm doing well. You seem to be doing well as well, which is fantastic.
Yes, I am doing well, and I am glad that you are doing well as well. As you know, the subject of this call is I want to contextualize a little bit of the experiences that I've had in the past 7 years or so since we knew each other originally. And that was when I was back in Baltimore in law school. And then also kind of dig into the large and amorphous conversation of how do you really change your behavior and how do you readjust your life trajectory. And I thought that because of our pre-existing relationship, and even though we haven't talked face to face in a little bit, we've stayed up per se since then. You'd be a good person for that. But let's just start by you contextualizing yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's life like for you these days?
I'm Josh. I guess I'm one of probably at this point Maggie's maybe oldest friends. I have to actually correct your memory. It hasn't been 7 years. That would take us to 2013. I think I graduated law school, I think in 2012. So we would have met round about 10 years ago,
2010.
2010 or so,
Yeah.
2009, 2010 when we started law school. Anyway, we went to law school together at the University of Baltimore, in Baltimore, Maryland, where I continue to live. Um, I did graduate law school in 2012 and took and passed the bar and never practiced a day of law in my life. I went to work doing politics and lobbying, and now I work in real estate. And life has taken a bit of a different turn for me, just like it has for you. And we're definitely in very different places than when we met around about 10 years ago. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about.
So, duly noted and well stated that my timeline was a little bit off. I suppose when I think of 7 years, I think of when things got really bad with law school or with my life in general. And you are right that there was a whole era that preceded that timeline. And that was when we were both students together. Um, and from there, as you said, you passed the bar, and I didn't actually realize you were doing real estate things now. Is that in conjunction with politic things or?
So for the last year and a half, I've been working in commercial real estate development here in Baltimore with a really small company. There's three of us. It was two of us when I started, myself and my boss. And we have a handful of properties here in Baltimore on historic commercial main streets that we own and manage and are the landlords for the tenants. You're probably familiar from your Baltimore days with Zeke's Coffee. That's one of our tenants.
Oh, neat.
Are sort of our biggest, most well-known tenant for sure.
Mhm.
So I've been doing that for a few years now, and prior to that, I was in politics. But now that's just a hobby, and nobody pays me for my political opinions anymore. And in fact, nobody even wants to hear them anymore.
Oh, sadness. Um, well, with that stated, nonetheless, I'm glad that you're doing really well, and congratulations on your reasonably recent marriage. You
Yeah.
are probably about under a year or right around your anniversary.
We got married at the end of September, September 20th. So I'm not real good at math. That's like 8 or 9 months, something like that.
Well, congratulations nonetheless,
Thank
and
you, thank you.
to
My
dig into kind
My
of the
wife was
details.
listening. She just said, "Really? It's been that long?"
Congratulations, and let her know that I'm
Yeah,
excited to meet her when I do have the opportunity to do so.
absolutely.
So I guess to dig into some of the meatier parts of the conversation, and know that this is an ongoing conversation for me, that I just at any point in time try to peel off a layer of the onion and hope to continually learn more about myself, and by doing so be able to articulate the understandings that I come to in an effort to help anyone else. And the two kind of larger questions that I frequently grapple with are how I was able to interact with or engage in a behavior system that was so long-term self-destructive and detrimental to myself, when my behaviors today are so different, and what I was able to do to make those behaviors as different as they are. And it's not just a question that I ask you. I ask my therapist. I ask like editors that I work with on creative projects, or my roommate. But it's a larger question of how behaviors can be created to be negative, and then how they alter them. So understanding that you're not a therapist to any extent, but you do see a lot of that type of kind of human conversation in law, what would be your first stab at that as a conversation topic?
Can you rephrase the question in more of a question?
Yeah, like, so what do you think are the causes of someone behaving in ways that can be knowingly self-destructive? And then what are the starting steps to be able to modify what could be self-destructive behavior to be otherwise embodied behavior?
Well, when I think back on our friendship over the long time that we've been friends, and think about that, how you got to where you were, at least as far as I know. When we met, we were we were 10 years younger, in law school, and you seem to have everything together. You were always dressed real nice, had nice new fancy clothes, and always looked really put together. You seem to know most of the answers in class. As far as I know, you got good grades, which, in law school isn't that easy to do. But there was a lot going on sort of beneath the surface that I don't know how many people knew. I don't know if anybody knew at that time. Not for probably 1 or 2 years, as things, got unfortunately worse. So why would Maggie do that? It's a great question, right? I mean,
I know it's the
why?
$10,000 question, and the fact that I don't know how to answer it scares me sometimes. So that's
Actually,
why.
I think it's like a $35,000 question if you look at the court filing, something along those lines.
Well played, Josh.
Why would somebody
Well
who
played.
has basically the world at her feet, so to speak, take some reckless actions and put herself in danger, and really, unfortunately, do damage to your future? I don't know. Expectations, I guess. You seemed at that time in particular, a lot less so now, concerned about what people thought, what you thought people should think about you, and how they should perceive you, and whether those were people here in Baltimore, our classmates and colleagues, people maybe in your past. I think your family, from what I know about your family, they have lots of expectations. In general, they love you and care about you, and I think things are seem to be better now, but a lot of expectations, and a lot maybe not, you'd be rolling your eyes, but a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations, and the difference between reality and expectations can be everything, and I think is a lot of what drove you to take some pretty crazy, really, decisions. If I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, they were. So like, as I was asking you that question, I realized both I was asking you a very big question, and thank you for being willing to kind of roll with me a little bit as I cheese through this, but also that I'm presupposing that anybody watching this would know kind of what we're talking about, and that might be true, but it's also like, without just vagaries and to be totally direct, we were in class together. I got myself into a powerful position where I was the treasurer of our student body with access to a fund. For better or worse, nobody audited that for a while. I started with small and not necessarily even small, but reasonably explainable, yet questionable interactions for personal use. And then that grew unchecked into a really large, what ended up being criminal case. So, and then I was not obviously, or very obviously, not unexpectedly expelled from school in a dramatic situation that we don't need to go into details with,
You can
but
read about it on the internet if you're
you can.
curious.
Yeah, and then that happened also. So there was a sequence of events where I engaged in extremely poor behavior that I am not trying to exculpate the severity of, thus hurting myself and a lot of other people that trusted and believed in me and supported me, and did so despite, as you said in the beginning, what was seemingly a very polished existence on the outside. So one of the things, as I said, that scares me about knowing this as my own behavior is the fact that I was able to indulge in it, and also that I was so adept at creating that shield. And I think what you said hit it a lot, is that I was deeply concerned with what people thought about me, so much so that I was willing to jeopardize the future of what they thought about me for the immediate. Um, what I, I guess, like, what was it like being my friend, and probably at the point that you did realize that things were not okay anymore and that it was crumbling down, and like, what would you have wished you could have said to me, or was there anything you could have said to me, or was I just in like a free fall at that point?
You know, sometimes you wish you could have done things differently. Maybe they would have had different outcomes. At that time, I don't think there was anything that me, or certainly I wasn't your only friend at the time, could have done or said that would have changed things. By the time, as far as I knew, at least, I can't speak for other people, but I think pretty much as far as anybody knew, everything was good until it really wasn't. And that was both from a substance use perspective as well as some of the bad decisions that you made, that ended up, as you said, in a legal case. And had we known those things probably 2 years before, maybe there could have been something to sort of stop that slide. But you're super smart, and you were able to hide it until you couldn't. I think I saw you drunk at we had a law school event. I don't remember
Yeah.
a lot
Yep.
about it. And I said, Maggie doesn't drink, but she's clearly drunk right now. Something's like definitely not what I thought it was. And by then we're actually way down the road, and I had no idea. Um, and it was awful to watch, very hard to watch and be a part of, and try to be helpful, but there's not a whole lot you can do. Um, maybe fortunately, it actually, at least from where I sit, got very bad very quickly. And I, having worked with a lot of people in addiction and recovery, you can't make someone change. They have to do that on their own. They have to do that when they're ready. They have to hit whatever their bottom is, and your bottom at that time came pretty quickly. And it wasn't without some fits and starts after that. But your road to recovery was actually not that long as far as the getting sober and starting down a different path, and that has taken a lot of turns, and you are where you are now and seem to be doing pretty well. But you hit your bottom on your own, and it was ugly. But that happened really quickly. I don't think there was anything anybody could have done to stop it at that time. Fortunately, you didn't, wreck your car with yourself in it or something horrible like that. And you live to tell the sordid tale, more or less. And I don't think there's anything we could do. I wish there was. We would have done it. I mean, I picked
Yeah.
you up. I picked you up one time at a boyfriend's house who had just gone to jail because he put his hands on you. We would have done what we had to do. But I don't think there was anything to be done at that point. I know I wasn't the only person who was concerned and trying, but it was out of our hands, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was out of my hands to a certain extent too, which
Right.
again is where like retroactive fear comes in. But to circle back to one moment, I just owe you a huge thank you. And I don't necessarily think that you're waiting on an amends, but I am sorry for the fear that I probably put you through as a friend. And I am also very grateful for the friendship and the support that you have shown me in very articulable ways, like picking me up and helping me U-Haul and all of the just bringing me pizza sometimes type things that you were very good at just kind of consistently checking in on me with. But also just you being you as a person, I've always appreciated. You're very Josh, and you kind of you decided we were going to be friends, and you just kind of started sitting next to me in class, and we're like,
Oh,
we're friends now. And I was like,
oh,
this is
I don't even remember that. Yeah.
awesome. And
I will say actually one thing. Um, you're certainly welcome in all those things. It's what friends do. I've known other people who have gone through really challenging situations with addiction and all kinds of bad decisions. Some of them I'm not friends with anymore because you obviously know this too through your years. You can only kind of take so much. You can only be let down so many times and sort of trust someone and get let down. Um, that mostly didn't happen with you. You weren't in a great place, but you mostly did the things you said you were going to do. And when it was time for you to get right, you were able to do that, both because you're a smart, strong person, and you did have some help around you. So it wasn't as trying as some other friendships I've had that were similar and that just weren't able to go up in that sort of right direction, to see people get better. And it's really hard. It's so hard to watch people that are struggling.
um yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for your graciousness, as well as I love when all of my friends try, or friends and professionals offer the group compliments of you are not the worst. And it's like tax attorneys, tax accountants, attorneys, doctors, and friends are like, this is bad, but I've seen worse. Like, yay. um Nonetheless, thank you for that. And even though I'm kind of living under a modified sobriety right now, which I have no apologies for because my life works really well for me, and I overall have day-to-day trials like any other human, but my trajectory is positive and I feel very embodied in all of my decisions. So, but I am very open about the fact that uh, prescription drugs and alcohol were a big part of my story, and having both the strength to walk away and stay walked away from those and finding that sense of rigorous honesty have been fundamental and mandatory parts of my recovery. What have you been able to see on your end? So the last time I saw you was 4 years ago when you were in Utah. Since then, I was not drinking at that time. I was like barely sober when you were here, but I was not happy in my relationship. And that was clearly obvious. And then you left. After that, I broke up, moved into the car, went West Coast and did yoga teacher training. We were going to meet up in California, but you were in San Francisco, I was in LA, and I just like was not up for 2 days worth of driving. And then you
That's
got married
right.
and I was back. What has it been like watching all of that unfold? Like, okay, Maggie, now you're living in your car.
Wow. I mean, again, when we met, we were in law school. You were training to be an attorney. You had, jobs and internships at very nice firms where you wear, a pantsuit and you're buttoned up and you're really, pretty formal as
I had
well.
to go through security
It
clearance
is.
at one point in my life.
Right. Right. And you're apparently able to pass. I don't know about you. I don't think you
Not
would
so now.
anymore.
I
Right.
can't drive an Uber anymore.
As far as I know, you had no tattoos at that time. Certainly
Mm-mm.
none that were visible. I'm pretty sure you didn't have any, right?
No.
Now you've got quite a few. That's been an interesting evolution to watch. I thought I met you and I thought you were going to work at a big law firm. And for those who don't know, the big law firm where you make a lot of money and you work lots and lots of hours and you work on the weekends. Your life is pretty miserable, but you made a lot of money and you've got this like wealth and prestige. That was the road that I thought that you were going to go down. I think that's probably the road, right, that you thought you were going to go down at that time. You're, basically doing the exact opposite of that right now, as far as I can tell. You don't have to wear any clothes to work sometimes. Definitely not formal clothes. You're very smart, and your life has taught you to be resourceful and creative. Probably not in ways you ever expected, and ways that you never thought you'd use. But some of these skills that you learn doing stupid things are probably pretty useful right now when you're kind of talking to people and telling a story, and you're building a brand that is both yourself and other brands, and putting yourself out there in that way. So in a way, you could see some of those skills back when we were much younger, although you had no idea that they would look like this. And then you went from here to Utah, and I don't think anybody knew what you were going to do, and you certainly didn't know what you were going to do, and I actually don't know what you did for a few years. And I guess then you went to the West Coast and learned yoga, which is pretty cool. You seem to be quite good at it, which is not surprising. You were always, running and athletic and all those things. And you have cobbled together all these various skills in a way that seems really meaningful and fulfilling, in a way that practicing law probably never would have been. There are other perks, of course, but probably not that you'd feel super good about it and that you'd be fulfilled. You might make your parents happier, though. I don't really know. And now you're just doing your thing, and you're doing exactly what you want to do. And I don't know if you still care what people think. It doesn't really seem like it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do the things that you do. So I guess you've gotten over a lot of that. I hadn't really ever thought about that until right now, but you spent quite a lot of time and energy and emotion trying to be what you thought other people wanted you to be, and what you felt like you should be, I guess, back in the day. And now, as far as I can tell, if there's something that you want to do or you want, you just do it. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I agree with you on a lot of it. It's been a wild and unpredictable ride, but kind of necessarily so. And You touched on the article in the beginning, and to recap on that, it's that when I did get the actual conviction for the activities I was engaging in, then there was an article written about that used my full name, and I will forever be Google searchable to that. And one of the conversations that I keep bringing into the content that I'm making right now is that I had a very clear moment at the time I was working as a paralegal. And so when this broke, everybody in my community and everybody kind of knew my greatest sin, which was a humiliating endeavor. And I had to walk back into that office that I was a paralegal at. And I remember sitting at the computer and pulling up the article and then Google searching, how do you change your own SEO? And literally starting to look into how do you create new SEO. And it was pretty much the starting moment of my new career now. And I learned about how you do it from a Google side of just keywords and things like that. And then I also learned about it. I literally found an article that said the best way you can correct bad SEO is to create a good story about yourself. And I've carried that in the back of my mind of, if I want to recorrect this and rewrite this, I literally have to write a new story. I have to create my new path. And I've been very fearless in that. But there was also the moment of I didn't really know what to do. I had that moment of searching, and then I've gone down the path from there, and I've written my story, and I've become really good about marketing. But I didn't know that was how it was going to go. If you had told me I'd be in Ventura being a yoga instructor, I might have found comfort in that, actually. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to pull from this call a little bit, is that, nobody knew where I would be now versus where I was then. And it's been hard, and I've had to work really hard on the sobriety, but it's still exceedingly different of a life story than 7 years ago. And I am passionate now, and that's powerful. So
did you ever want to be a lawyer?
I wonder that. That is not a $10,000 question. I don't know. I think I just didn't know what else to do. I think I was an artistic kid that probably should have gone to college. I came from the upper middle class trajectory that goes to college. So I don't regret that, but I think I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. And I was so desperate to find my self-worth as valued by my parents' paradigm that I thought that law school was almost the path to least resistance of becoming. It was the only model. It was the only life plan that I knew of. Almost.
They used to tell you, it's totally different now, but they used to tell you, if you're smart and you don't know what you want to do, go to law school, because you can do anything with a law degree. And I think you bounced around a little bit. You had taken time off between college and law school, right? Mm-hmm. I went straight through because I thought I definitely want to be a lawyer. It turns out maybe that wasn't true, but that's what I thought. But if you were smart, back in the day, you could get lots of jobs with a law degree, and they'd pay well, and they're prestigious, and everybody would be happy. So that made a lot of sense, I think. It was wrong. It's wrong thinking, but it made sense at the time.
It did. And there was a different conversation around student loans then than now. It was much more accepted to create really high levels of student loan debt. And there was just this default attitude of, if you're smart and you don't know what to do, go to law school. And it's not that hard. It's hard and it's not that hard at the same time. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think I just kind of defaulted into it. And I'm happy though for the experience. And it's taken a lot of work to find the gratitude in that. But as you said, I have cobbled together a variety of skill sets into what is a lightly sustainable income. And a lot of those skills were harnessed from law school. I mean, being able to publicly carry on a conversation for an hour the way that I am right now is probably from moot court. So
no doubt, no doubt you learned a lot. Some things that are sort of part of the law, and some things that are just intangibles that were related to your life story at that time, and all the strange paths it took.
mm-hmm. Well, what would you say to someone that is, what is the part of you that's always been really secure in yourself, and what is it that is changed in me that you say that I don't really care about what people think anymore, which is true to some extent. Like on the large scale, I don't care what people think, although I care very deeply like what my friends and people I trust think. But what's that intangible part of like you that's always been like, I'm Josh, and that you're probably seeing in me now? Like, where does that comfort and confidence come from?
That's a great question.
I don't know how to like
Some of
bottle that
it,
up to the 22-year-old, you know?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you, some of it's faking it till you make it. We all feel insecure at different times and in different situations. It looks different for everybody. It happens all the time for me. But, I know that at the end of the day, I have family and friends. And for me, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways. I've always had a place to go. That it's gonna mostly be okay. It might not look how I want it to look and feel how I want it to feel all the time because it gets uncomfortable. But it's mostly okay. When you mentioned I recently got married, which is a big deal for me because I went through a long period of time where I was very bad at staying in relationships that were in any way meaningful. And it was maybe
You had like a 6-week capacity, a max
yeah,
there for
yeah, yeah. I mean, you
3 years.
can ask my wife. My wife is upstairs. If she were here, she would tell you, we went out 3 times and then we finally stayed together. The first time we dated and it was great and it was like, this is gonna be awesome. And then 2 weeks later he dumped me. And then we did it again. And then she said, I never want to talk to you again. And then she changed her mind. But in the meantime, my growth came from, I guess I was about 30. I looked around and I said, I have a really good job. I have great friends, my family, we mostly get along pretty well. I own a house. Everything is good, but I can't be in a relationship. So we did a lot of therapy. I went to therapy once a week for a year and a half or so. I'm still in therapy, but not weekly, happy to say. And that's all we worked on. And people would say, God, Josh, it seems like you really got it together. And it's, it does seem that way, but there's stuff underneath that you don't know, and it's scary to be vulnerable. And when I was able to put words to those things and see what it looked like, sort of retrospectively, was able to make some changes and mostly doing a lot better now. Married, yeah, that's good. That's cool, right? Who would have thought? Anyway, your question was, how do you maintain when you're unsure and when things don't feel real good? Again, for me, first of all, sometimes I couldn't. I don't have that anymore, but sometimes you just can't, and that's okay. And you don't have to feel badly about that, right? We are lucky that most of us are lucky to have options to get help, seek support, whatever that looks like for you. So that can happen. But, for the most part, that's most people are maintaining. And you lean on things and on people that are stable, and that is the best thing that I was always been able to do. Whether for sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family, um, sometimes it's just like I physically can go into my house and that's like a safe space, right?
Mhm.
And when you have that stability, it allows you to work on the things that are more difficult.
Yeah, there was a lot that I just thought about when you were responding to that. And one of the things that I do remind myself about, and when I quit in January and I posted about that, you messaged me very quickly. And I think you have still a good pulse on like when I'm not okay and when I'm not when I'm okay and when I'm not okay. And I think you were like, I should touch base with her. Um, but in the transition since then, over the last 4 months and starting all of these video production series, when I have anxiety, I remind myself that I am in a safe house. I don't have anyone in my life that is an active alcoholic or addict that I'm in fear of, or in any situation where I'm vulnerable to abuse, be it emotional, verbal, or physical. And that I am also primarily sane and able and healthy bodied, and I don't have substance like active and worrisome substance abuse issues to worry about also. And when all of those are present, yeah, it's a real step ahead of the game.
Right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, even worst case scenario, you're just broke.
Yeah.
Which sucks. Totally
Yeah.
sucks. But life goes on.
And you can rebuild from broke. You can't rebuild
Yeah.
from bad. So,
Sometimes you can't rebuild from stuff that's worse than that.
yeah.
Or more challenging than that. I shouldn't say worse. It's not better or worse.
Yeah. Um, One last question and then I'll let you go. And again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. But another part that I've always appreciated about you, and I rolled my eyes about my family stuff in the beginning, they hate all things tattoos. And as you know, my mom can't not verbalize that within 5 minutes of being in her presence. And it gets really old to have your parents tell you they find you physically unattractive on a regular basis. But I've always admired on the converse with you how close you are with all of your family. Love to both of your parents and your sister. And that, I mean, we're probably one of each other's oldest friends at this point, but you
Mm-hmm.
do maintain the relationships with the people that you maintain in a really healthy way, and that you communicate really non-abusively and without conflict. Um, and I've always appreciated that about you. How do you kind of build the communities around yourself that you want to be a part of?
So we are one of my oldest friends for sure. I probably have a couple friends from college, like literally a couple, and then friends I've developed over the years. But this is definitely one of my longest friendships, relationships. Some people you can meet and you get along with real well. It's easy to talk to these people. Um, you may not even share that much in common. Actually, just easy to talk to people. And like you mentioned, sometimes we don't talk for a while. We've known each other a decade now. I suspect there's been times where we haven't talked for, I don't know, a year, maybe more.
Totally.
But when you do, it's I don't hold any grudges or think there's anything bad that why didn't she call me for a year, what an asshole. We're talking now and that's what matters. And for those special people that you try to remain to keep in your life even if you don't talk to very much, when you do connect again, it's just like normal. It's like you met the first time in law school, and it's still pretty easy. And those relationships are not super common. I can't talk to everybody for an hour or have an easygoing conversation about all kinds of things. So when you find people like that, you should try to keep them in your life. And sometimes you don't, for whatever reason, maybe a good reason, maybe a bad reason. It really doesn't matter. But when you do reconnect, and you should reconnect, just, you know, be normal, don't hold a grudge, and move forward. And because it's like not really about what happened in law school. I don't really care what happened in law school. In fact, it's actually pretty much irrelevant to everything in my life and your life now. It doesn't even matter, right? We're doing our own things now, and that's most important. So, you know, when you find people that you can connect with, you should keep them in your life and forgive them if need be, because it's worth it. There was a second part to the question. I really forgot it now. Do you remember?
How do you choose the people? How do you build the community around you? Like you've always had good people in your life, and
Yeah, I've
that's
been so
admirable.
lucky. I've always had a pretty easy time meeting people. I'm pretty outgoing. I'm an extrovert. You know, I'll talk to a random person in the grocery store in line. They won't always become my best friend, but I'll talk to anybody. So, you know, that makes it easier. Like if you can be, you know, gregarious and extroverted, it's a lot easier. If you're introverted, it's probably a lot harder. But regardless, you need to sort of push yourself, make yourself uncomfortable. I think that is important. I don't do it that much anymore because my life is pretty set and stable these days. But um, you've gotta get outside your comfort zone, and that's how you meet people and discover new things that you're going to be passionate about. You are, as far as I can tell, continually pushing your boundaries physically, emotionally, all those things, which I think is super cool as you know continue to explore what makes you happy. Right now, for me, I have I'm wearing my cat dad T-shirt
I
because
was going to mention.
I've got three. We've got three cats. My wife got this for me for Christmas. I've got my cats. We don't. Kids are not in our future. We have our cats. I like bikes.
You
I
have
like.
biking.
Yeah, I love bikes. Bicycles, not motorcycles. Those scare me. And I do a lot of stuff in my community, and it makes me feel great. But all those things required, at one point at least, doing something that was uncomfortable. You know, you roll up to the first group bike ride and you don't know anybody, and yeah, I wasn't a strong cyclist at that time, and you just do your best. You know, same thing when I'm in my community association now. That's kind of a big deal for me. I do a lot of stuff in the neighborhood. Well, I moved here a couple of years ago. I didn't know a soul, but you showed up. You keep showing up. Keep raising your hand. And next thing you know, you've got great friends. I can walk down the block and say hi to a dozen people and hang out with them on their porches and have a beer or go out to eat. And it's a really great community. So, you know, I think what in yoga you say, where you push your boundaries, push your edges, something like that. And then when you meet people that are good people, you got to keep them around and be kind to them and yourself.
Well, I don't think I could think of a better summary or wrap up point than that. And I think you stated it really well. I mean, maybe the wisest part of this entire conversation is if you want to be different and you want to change, you just do it. Like, just get started. If you want to bike, go to the bike meetup. If you want to be a yoga teacher, go to yoga teacher training, you know.
But you don't have
And
to, and you don't have to stick around either. If it's not for you and it doesn't feel comfortable, you
mhm.
can leave and not feel badly about that. You don't have to finish every book you start. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Yeah. And I think that circles back to that self-knowledge and that self-awareness. And um, there's something probably in between humility and inquisitivity that is the balance that ideally we've both found a little bit of in the past decade of our existence. So
Absolutely.
um, thank you so much for talking to me. This has been a really good conversation, and I think if there's anything that I could provide to anybody listening to this in the future, it's, you know, bad series of mistakes can have a lot, it sounds so trite, but it can have a lot of benefits and reasoning behind it later in your life. And life is strangely cyclical, but also ever expanding. And it can be everything that you never thought it would be, or also what you want to make of it. So I hope that there's some hope from this call, and I think that there has been. So I appreciate you engaging in that with me.
My pleasure. Glad to see you're doing so well. Talk to you soon.
Too, Josh. I will talk to you soon. Love to the cats, love to your wife, and the rest of your family. Okay.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.